The heavy black plastic bag hit my chest with a dull and wet thud. It knocked the wind out of me. I stumbled backward and nearly slipped on the slick concrete of the porch. The October rain in Portland was not just cold. It was angry. It fell in sheets that soaked through my denim jacket in seconds. The water chilled my bones and made my 65-year-old joints ache instantly. I looked up at the doorway. My daughter stood there. Nia. My baby girl. The same girl I had carried on my shoulders to parades and taught how to mix mortar in the backyard. She stood blocking the warm golden light of the hallway. Her eyes were red and swollen like she had been crying for hours. But when she spoke, her voice was unrecognizable. It was sharp and cold like a razor blade. He was leaning against the doorframe wearing a silk robe that cost more than my first truck. A cruel smirk played on his lips. That smirk. It was the same look he had worn the night before, and the memory of it burned in my chest, hotter than the freezing rain. My mind flashed back to the dinner party just 24 hours ago. The house had been full of his friends. They were young developers and tech investors who smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. Terrence had called for a toast. He put his arm around my shoulder, but it did not feel like an embrace. It felt like a clamp. He had laughed and held up his wine glass. He looked at his friends and pointed at me. "You have to forgive my father-in-law," Terrence had said. His voice was covered in calluses and old scars from 40 years of laying brick and pouring concrete. Terrence sneered. "These are the hands of a laborer. He is a simple bricklayer. His thinking does not fit in our world. He does not understand the digital economy or leverage or assets. He is just a burden now, an anchor dragging us down into the past." The room had laughed, a polite and cruel laughter. I had snatched my hand back. I wanted to tell him that these hands built the very floor he was standing on. I wanted to tell him that these hands paid for Nia to go to architecture school. But I had stayed silent for her sake. I swallowed the humiliation because I wanted my daughter to have peace, Basol. But there was no peace tonight. Back in the rain, Terrence stepped forward. The rain dripped from his nose. "Do not come back until you are ready to sign the deed, Elijah," he roared. "This house is worth $2,500,000. It is wasted on you. Sign the transfer papers or rot in the street. You are done here." I looked up at him. Then I looked at Nia. She would not meet my eyes. She grabbed the heavy garbage bag from the floor and stepped out onto the porch. She looked like she was about to strike me. I flinched. But she did not hit me. She threw the bag right into my lap. She leaned down. Her face was twisted in a mask of rage for Terrence to see. But for a split second, her eyes locked with mine. They were wide with terror. She hissed through her clenched teeth. The sound was barely a whisper under the noise of the falling rain. The rain beat down on my gray hair. I was shivering, but I did not move. The word echoed in my mind. Gumbo. It was not just a stew. It was not just dinner. It was our word. When Nia was 7 years old, she got separated from me at the state fair. We had a rule. If she was ever in trouble or scared, she would use the code word. She used it when a boy would not leave her alone at prom. She used it when she had a flat tire on the highway. Gumbo meant danger. It meant she was trapped. It meant I love you, but I cannot talk right now. I looked down at the black plastic bag in my lap. I clutched it tight. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. Nia had not kicked me out. She had pushed me out of the line of fire. She was not rejecting me. It stung my face and froze my hands. I trudged toward the bus shelter on the corner of 82nd Street. My boots squelched in the puddles. Every step sent a jolt of pain through my bad knee, but I did not stop. The bus shelter was a graffiti-covered box of plexiglass that smelled like stale urine and wet cigarettes. I stepped inside just to get out of the downpour. I was alone. Or so I thought. 3 shadows detached themselves from the brick wall of the liquor store behind me. They were young men. They wore oversized hoodies and walked with that loose and predatory swagger that I recognized from my own youth in this neighborhood. They saw an old man shivering in the cold. They saw a heavy black bag clutched in his arms. They saw an easy target. They circled me like sharks smelling blood in the water. "What do you have in the bag, Pops?" he asked. His voice was low and mocking. "It is just trash, son," I said. My voice was steady. I kept my grip tight on the plastic. "One man's trash is another man's treasure," the boy sneered. He flicked a switchblade open. The metal glinted dull silver under the street lamp. "Hand it over, old man. Do not make me hurt you." I sighed. The fatigue of the night sat heavy on my shoulders. But beneath the exhaustion, something ancient woke up. It was the instinct that had kept me alive for 65 years. It was the muscle memory of 1,000 scraps in schoolyards and construction sites. These boys looked at my gray beard and saw weakness. They did not know that concrete hardens with time. "I am asking you nicely," I said. "Walk away." The leader laughed. I clamped my left hand over his wrist and dug my thumb into the pressure point between his tendons. I twisted his arm back against the joint. I used the torque of my hips to pivot. It was a move I had learned in the Navy 40 years ago. The knife clattered to the pavement. The boy let out a high-pitched yelp of pain as I forced him down to his knees. I did not let go. I leaned down until my face was inches from his terrified eyes. "Do not let this gray beard fool you, son," I growled. My voice was a low rumble of thunder. "I was fighting on these streets before your daddy was even born. Now pick up your toy and run before I break this wrist." I released him. He scrambled backward on the wet pavement. He grabbed his knife and looked at me with wide, fearful eyes. His friend's age does not mean weakness. It just means you know exactly where to strike. I waited until they were gone. Then I walked 2 blocks to where I had parked my truck earlier that day. It was a rusted Ford F-150 that had seen better days. I climbed into the cab and locked the doors. The interior smelled like sawdust and old coffee. It was the only place in the world that felt safe. I turned on the dome light. The bulb flickered and buzzed. With trembling fingers, I untied the knot on the black garbage bag. I reached inside. The top layer was just what I expected. It was my old flannel shirts and work trousers. It was the camouflage Naya had used to fool Terrence. But I dug deeper. My fingers brushed against something hard and rectangular, wrapped in thick plastic. I pulled it out, then another, and another. I did not need to count it to know it was a fortune. It was heavy. It was real. $700,000. This was Nia's money. This was every cent she had saved from her side projects and investments over the last 10 years. She had hidden her success from Terrence. She had pretended to be dependent while she built her own kingdom in silence. At the bottom of the bag, I found a thick envelope. My name was written on it in her neat architectural handwriting. I tore it open. "Daddy, if you are reading this, then the plan worked. I am so sorry. I had to hurt you to save you. Terrence is in trouble. He owes $3 million to the Bratva, the Russian mob in Seattle. They gave him a deadline. He has gambled away everything. The investors' money, the company accounts. Everything is gone. I heard him planning it, Daddy. He told his mistress that he was going to stage an accident, a fall down the stairs. He said at your age the police would call it natural causes. He was going to kill you to get the house. I have the recordings on a hard drive, but it is not enough for the police yet. They need proof of intent or a committed crime. If I told you the truth, you would have confronted him. He would have hurt you right then. I had to get you out. I had to make him believe I was on his side. Go to the safe house in Seattle. I will meet you there. We are going to take him down together. I love you, Nia. I lowered the letter. Tears burned in my eyes. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of pure, molten rage. Terrence Bishop planned to murder me for a $2,500,000. She had to look me in the eye and break my heart just to keep it beating. She was living in a house with a monster to buy me time. I wiped my face with the back of my rough hand. The sadness vanished. A cold resolve settled over me like armor. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my burner phone. I dialed a number I had not called in 3 years. It rang twice. Otis King answered. His voice was gravel and smoke. Hello, Elijah. It is 3 a.m. I started the engine of the truck. The old V8 roared to life with a defiant growl. I put the truck in gear and looked out at the rain-slicked road leading north. Wake up, Otis, I said. My voice was calm and deadly. Pack your gear. Bring the long lenses and the wiretaps. Meet me in Seattle. There was a pause on the line. It was a stark contrast to the home I had built in Portland with my own 2 hands. But this was our command center now. Otis King sat hunched over a bank of monitors like a gargoyle guarding a cathedral. His large fingers moved across the keyboard with surprising grace for a man of his size. We are live, Elijah, he rumbled. The screens flickered to life. My heart clenched in my chest. There it was. My living room, my kitchen. The hallway where I had hung pictures of Nia from kindergarten to graduation. Seeing the interior of my own home while sitting 3 hours away felt like an invasion. But the real invasion was the man walking through the frame. Terrence Bishop paced the hardwood floors like he owned every grain of timber. For the next 3 days, I lived in front of those screens. I watched He kissed her forehead and whispered apologies about my departure. He told her he only wanted what was best for the family. He told her I was sick and needed tough love. Nia played her part perfectly. She nodded. She leaned into his touch. But the moment his back was turned, she looked at the camera hidden in the smoke detector. Her eyes were dead. It was the look of a soldier behind enemy lines. Then Terrence would leave the room. He would pull out his phone, and the facade would crumble. I watched him walk into his study and lock the door. Otis turned up the audio gain. Hey, baby, Terrence crooned into the phone. He was video calling Vanessa. I could hear her tinny voice on the other end, asking about the house. Don't worry about the old man, Terrence laughed. He leaned back in my leather chair, and I gripped the edge of the table in Seattle until the wood groaned. Otis placed a calming hand on my shoulder. Easy, Elijah. Let him talk. Every word is a nail in his coffin. Terrence continued. Nia is eating out of my hand. She is so naive. She thinks I am the grieving husband. Once we get the power of attorney settled, I will put her in a nice little condo somewhere and we will take the Cayman flight. Just you and me, babe. He blew a kiss to the screen and hung up. The arrogance of the man was suffocating. But arrogance makes people sloppy. And we needed him to be sloppy because we needed the digital smoking gun. It was Tuesday afternoon. The clock on the wall read 2:15. Terrence had left for a meeting with the zoning board. He was not expected back until 5. This was the window. Nia texted my. She wore oversized wool socks to muffle her footsteps. She reached the door of the study. It was locked. She pulled a bobby pin from her hair. I held my breath. I had taught her how to pick a simple tumbler lock when she was 12 years old because a girl should never be trapped in a room she cannot get out of. She worked the tension wrench. Click. The door swung open. Nia slipped inside and went straight to the desktop computer. Otis leaned forward. Come on, girl. Get the payload. She plugged the USB drive into the tower. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She bypassed the password protection using the administrator backdoor Otis had walked her through the night before. The screen on the monitor showed a progress bar. It was a thick green line inching forward. I could see the sheen on her forehead, even through the grainy camera feed. 60%. Then the sound of gravel crunching under tires cut through the audio feed. My blood ran cold. Otis swore softly. He is back. The rumble of the Jaguar engine echoed in the garage. The garage door motor whirred to life. He was 3 hours early. Nia froze. She looked at the computer screen. 80%. Run, baby, run, I whispered at the screen. The garage door slammed shut. Heavy footsteps echoed on the mudroom tile. 90%. Nia was shaking now. She hovered her hand over the USB drive. The footsteps grew louder. He was coming down the hallway. He was whistling a cheerful tune which made it even more terrifying. Terrence pushed the door open. He stopped dead in his tracks. His smile vanished. His eyes narrowed into slits. Nia. He looked at the computer screen which was just fading to black. He looked at her flushed face. What are you doing in here? My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. If he searched her, he would find the drive. If he found the drive, he would know everything. Nia did not flinch. She reached into her other pocket and pulled out a white phone charger. I was looking for this, she said. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the tremor underneath. You said you borrowed my charger yesterday. My phone is dead. Terrence stared at her. He scanned the room. He looked for anything out of place. He was a predator sensing a change in the wind. He did not move for a long moment. Then he followed her. He walked right behind her down the hallway. He was suspicious. I could see the tension in his shoulders. He was deciding whether to believe her. Nia walked into the kitchen. She went straight to the island counter where she had left a bowl of dough. She was making bread to calm her nerves. It was a habit she got from her mother. Terrence leaned against the archway. He crossed his arms. You seem jumpy today, Nia. Nia laughed. It was a brittle sound. I am just tired, Terrence. This situation with Dad has me on edge. She picked up the bag of flour. She needed to hide the drive. It was burning a hole in her pocket. But he was watching her like a hawk. I watched in horror as she reached into her pocket. I am going to make biscuits, she said. Comfort food. Terrence took a step forward. Let me help you, he said. He reached for the flour jar. No, Nia said sharply. Terrence paused. I mean, Nia softened her tone. You will get your suit dirty, baby. Sit down. Let me take care of you. She plunged her left hand into the flour jar. She pretended to scoop up a handful of white powder. I saw her thumb push the silver drive deep into the soft white mound. She pulled her hand out, coated in flour. She dusted her hands together. The evidence was buried 3 inches deep in the ceramic jar right in front of his eyes. Terrence stared at her flour-coated hands. Then he smiled. It was a cold smile. "You are a good wife, Nia." He walked over and kissed her cheek. "Yes, she does," I whispered. But we were not safe yet. We had the data. Now we had to get it out of the house. And Terrence was watching every move she made. Sitting in a dark room watching monitors was not enough. The digital evidence Nia had secured was powerful, but we needed more. We needed to hear the devil speak in his own voice. We needed a recording of Terrence Bishop explicitly ordering the forgery of my signature. That was the final nail that would seal his cell door for 20 years. To get that, we had to go back into the belly of the beast. I returned to Portland 2 days later. I did not drive my truck to the city center. Instead, I parked it 3 blocks away and pulled on a faded gray maintenance jumpsuit I had bought at a thrift store. I pulled a matching gray cap low over my eyes and grabbed a mop bucket on wheels. In a building full of suits and ambition, a man in a gray jumpsuit is invisible. I was just part of the infrastructure like the plumbing or the electrical wiring. I took the service elevator to the top floor. The doors slid open, and my heart hammered against my ribs. I kept my head down and pushed the squeaky bucket across the polished marble floor of the lobby. Then the executive elevator chimed. The doors opened, and Terrence stepped out. I froze. He was less than 5 feet away from me. He was wearing a navy blue suit that cost $3,000 and shouting into his cell phone. The smell of his cologne hit me like a wave of nausea. It was a scent of cedar and arrogance. I tightened my grip on the mop handle. My knuckles turned white. Terrence did not even break his stride. He walked right past me. His shoe brushed against my bucket. He did not look down. He did not apologize. To him, I was not a person. I was an obstacle. I was a ghost. The arrogance of the wealthy is a blinding thing. It made him feel invincible, but it also made him blind to the wolf standing in his own hallway. He disappeared into his office. I waited for 10 minutes until he left for lunch. Then I moved fast. I slipped into the conference room. This was where he held his private meetings. I crawled under the massive oak table. My knees popped and protested on the hard floor. 65 years of hard labor catches up with you in moments like this. I pulled the tiny listening device from my pocket. It was no bigger than a quarter. I squeezed my large frame into the narrow gap behind a decorative ficus tree in the corner. There was a small maintenance access panel for the HVAC system there. I pressed my back against the cold metal vent and held my breath. The door opened. Heavy footsteps walked in. It was not Terrence. It was Marcus, the head of security. I knew Marcus. I had hired him for a contracting job 10 years ago. He was a good man, but he was sharp. If he saw me, the game was over. Marcus walked around the table. He paused. He sniffed the air. He was sensing something wrong. He looked at the mop bucket I had left by the door. "Hello," he called out. "Is anyone in here?" I squeezed my eyes shut. A bead of sweat rolled down my nose. My thigh muscle began to cramp. The pain was sharp and hot, but I did not move. "Copy that," Marcus said. He turned and left. The door clicked shut. I let out a shuddering breath. I waited another 5 minutes before I crawled out. My legs were shaking, but the bug was planted. We were listening. 2 hours later, the stakes got higher. Nia texted me. She had retrieved the USB drive from the flour jar. She was driving to meet me at our designated drop point near the waterfront. I was waiting in my truck in an alleyway 3 streets over. Otis was in the passenger seat checking his pistol. Suddenly, Otis sat up straight. He looked at the GPS tracker we had put on Nia's car. "Elijah." "We have a problem," Otis rumbled. "What is it?" "She has a shadow. There is a black sedan following her. It has been on her tail for 6 turns. That is not a coincidence. Terrence had hired a professional. He suspected." Her voice was tight with fear. "You have a tail. Do not go to the waterfront. If you stop, they will take the drive." "What do I do? Turn left at the next light. Go toward the old market district. The streets are narrow there." I started my truck. The engine roared. I peeled out of the alleyway. I drove parallel to her route. I knew these streets better than anyone. I knew the timing of every light. I floored the gas pedal. The old Ford shuddered as I pushed it to 60 miles per hour on the city street. I saw Nia's small red car turn the corner ahead. She was driving fast. Then I saw him. A black sedan with tinted windows was right on her bumper. It was aggressive. He was trying to run her off the road. "Hold on, baby," I whispered. The sound of metal on metal was a sickening crunch. My heavy steel bumper tore through the side of his expensive sedan like a can opener. Glass shattered. His car spun out and slammed into a light pole. My truck jolted to a halt. Traffic stopped. Horns blared. Nia's car sped away down the street. She was safe. The driver of the sedan kicked his door open. He stumbled out. He was a big man with a shaved head and tattoos on his neck. He looked furious. He reached into his jacket pocket. "You crazy old fool," he screamed. He started marching toward my truck. He was ready for violence. Then the passenger door of my truck opened. Otis King stepped out. Otis is 6 feet 4 inches tall and built like a brick wall. He wore a dark trench coat and sunglasses. He did not say a word. He did calculations in his head. He realized he was not the hunter anymore. He took his hand out of his jacket. It was empty. "My mistake, gentlemen," he muttered. He turned and limped away down the street, leaving his wrecked car behind. I looked at Otis and grinned. My neck hurt from the impact, but I felt alive. "Let us go get that drive," I said. "We have a wolf to skin." The data on the small silver drive was a treasure trove of corruption. Otis and I spent the night sifting through bank transfers and forged deeds. But the most damning piece of evidence was not a crime against the state. It was a crime against the heart. And it was the weapon we needed to turn the tide. I found it in a subfolder labeled Miscellaneous Expenses. It was an electronic flight confirmation for There was only one name listed: Terrence Bishop. He had promised Vanessa a wedding on the beach and a life of luxury. He had convinced her to help him launder money and hide assets with the promise of a shared escape. But Terrence Bishop did not share. He was a parasite who fed on people until they were dry and then discarded the husk. He was planning to leave her behind with nothing but a suitcase full of empty promises and a federal indictment. We found Vanessa at the Velvet Touch Salon on Martin Luther King Boulevard. She was sitting in a leather chair with foil in her hair and a glass of champagne in her hand. She looked like a woman preparing for a coronation. She had no idea she was about to be dethroned. I walked in first. Otis followed, and his massive frame blocked out the sunlight from the doorway. The salon went quiet. Vanessa looked up in the mirror. Her eyes widened when she saw my "We are not here to hurt you. We are here to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life." She scoffed. She tried to muster the arrogance she had learned from Terrence. "Get out of here, Elijah. Terrence warned me you might try something desperate. You are pathetic." I did not flinch. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the printed flight itinerary. I placed it gently on the vanity table amidst her expensive cosmetics. "He is leaving tomorrow night, Vanessa," I said. "But he is not taking you." She looked at the paper. She laughed nervously. "You are lying. We have tickets. We are leaving together." "Look at the manifest," I said. "One passenger. One seat. One way." Her hand trembled as she picked up the paper. She read it. "He used you to sign the fraudulent checks. He used you to distract the investors. And when he gets on that plane, he is going to leave you here to answer for his crimes. You will go to prison for 20 years while he sips rum on a beach." Vanessa stared at her reflection. The arrogance vanished. In its place was a cold and terrifying fury. A tear cut a track through her foundation, but her eyes were dry and dangerous. "He thinks I am stupid," she whispered. Her voice was shaking with rage. "He thinks he can play me." "You can help us burn him down," I said. "Or you can burn with him." Vanessa looked at me. She wiped the tear away with a manicured nail. "Tell me what you need me to do." The night before the ceremony, the air in Seattle was thick with anticipation. "I cannot wait for you to see what I have built. After the ceremony, I have a special surprise for you." Nia played her part. "I am so excited, Terrence," she said. I knew what the surprise was. It was a divorce filing and an eviction notice. He planned to cast her aside the moment the cameras stopped flashing. He thought he was the master of the game. He had no idea that the trap was already sprung. He was walking into the lion's den, and he thought he was the lion. But he was just the meat. The Bishop Plaza launch was designed to be a coronation. The grand ballroom of the Portland Convention Center glittered with crystal chandeliers and golden light. 200 guests sat at round tables covered in white linen. The air smelled of expensive roast beef and heavy perfume. Mayor Richardson sat in the front row. He gripped the sides of the podium and looked out at the sea of investors and city officials. He was selling them a lie wrapped in a smile. "Integrity," he said. His voice was smooth and practiced. "That is the foundation of this company. We build homes, not just houses. Family values are the mortar that holds us together." He paused for effect. He looked down at his feet and then back up with shimmering eyes. He wiped a fake tear from his cheek. "It breaks my heart that my father-in-law, Elijah Freeman, could not be here today. He has been missing for 3 weeks. We pray for his safe return, but we fear the worst. He was a simple man, but we loved him dearly." I stood in the wings behind the heavy velvet curtain. My blood boiled. The audacity of this man was boundless. The guests covered their ears. Terrence flinched and tapped the dead microphone. Suddenly, the massive LED screen behind him flickered. The glossy architectural renderings of Bishop Plaza vanished. The screen went black for a heartbeat. Then my face filled the 20-foot screen. It was not a photo. It was a video recorded 3 days ago in our Seattle safe house. "Hello, Terrence," the video version of me said. "You wanted to know where I went. Let me show you." The video cut sharply to the hidden camera footage from my living room. The image was grainy, but the audio was crystal clear. Terrence's voice boomed through the convention center speakers. "One push down the stairs is all it takes," he said on screen. He was laughing. It was the sound of 200 people realizing they were in the room with a monster. Mayor Richardson stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Nia sat in the 3rd row and covered her mouth in mock shock. Terrence looked like he had been struck by lightning. He banged his fist on the podium. "Turn it off!" he screamed. His voice cracked and spiraled into panic. "This is a lie. This is a deepfake. That video is doctored. He pointed a shaking finger at the tech booth where Otis was sitting. Security cut the feed. This old man is senile. He is crazy. Get this garbage off the screen. I stepped out from behind the curtain. I walked into the harsh glare of the spotlight. I held a working microphone in my hand. I was wearing my best Sunday suit. "You can delete a video, Terrence," I said. My voice. "You are insane," he shouted. "You are trespassing. Security, get him out of here." Two uniformed security guards started to move toward the stage, but they stopped when I raised my hand. "You say I faked the video," I said calmly. "You say I am crazy. Well, then explain her." I gestured to the other side of the stage. Vanessa walked out. She was not wearing the diamonds he had bought her with stolen funds. She was wearing a simple black dress. She held a stack of documents in her hand. Terrence's jaw dropped. He took a stumbling step back. Vanessa walked straight to center stage. She took the microphone from my hand. "He did not fake anything, Terrence," she said. Her voice was cold steel. "I helped you forge the signatures on the deed last month." The flash of camera bulbs turned into a blinding strobe light. Terrence looked for an exit. He saw the side door and lunged for it. He was a rat trying to flee a sinking ship, but in his panic he did not see the cable of the microphone stand. He tripped. He went down hard. He sprawled face first onto the stage floor, right at the toe of my work boots. He tried to scramble up, but the heavy footsteps of 4 police officers shook the stage. They were coming from the back of the room. Otis had timed the call perfectly. Terrence looked up at me. He was panting. He looked small and pathetic. I leaned down. I looked him right in the eye. "You forgot one thing, Terrence," I whispered so only he could hear. "You built your house on sand, but I built mine on rock." Justice moved swiftly. He was dragged out of the courtroom in shackles. He looked at me one last time, but I did not look back. He was already a ghost to me. Vanessa testified against him in exchange for a plea deal. She received 3 years of probation. She left the courtroom alone and vanished into the city to start over. Nia finalized her divorce 2 months later. She kept her $700,000. It was untouchable. We stood in the driveway of the big house on the hill one last time. The for sale sign was planted in the front lawn. The house was beautiful, but it was hollow. It held too many memories of betrayal. "We do not need this place," Nia said. "No, we do not." I agreed. We sold it for $2,600,000. We split the proceeds down the middle. We hung a new sign above the door. Second Chance Builders. It is a vocational training center for men over 50. We teach carpentry, plumbing, and electrical work to men who the world has cast aside. We teach them that their gray hair is a badge of honor, and their calloused hands are valuable tools. 6 months later, I stood in the center of the workshop. The air was thick with the rich smell of cedar sawdust and wood glue. The hum of table saws and the rhythmic tap of hammers filled the room like music. I was teaching a 60-year-old man named Marcus how to hold a hand plane. He had been unemployed for 2 years. He thought his life was over. But as he watched the ribbon of wood curl up from the board, his eyes lit up. "You have got the touch, Marcus," I said. "You are a natural." He smiled. It was the first time I had seen him smile in weeks. Her smile was free of fear. It was full of pride. We did not just get our money back. We reclaimed our dignity. There is a dangerous lie in our world today that says getting older means becoming invisible. They think gray hair signifies weakness, and silence implies consent. But as I proved to Terrence that night, age is not a decline. It is an accumulation of wisdom, patience, and grit. A house built on lies will always collapse, but a life built on integrity and family is bulletproof. So to everyone listening, protect your legacy, trust your instincts, and never let anyone treat you like you are finished.